old when we lost her to drowning. I'm Bodie Miller, and this is my wife, Morgan.
She was a bold little personality and such a bright light in our lives.
As a family, we were careful around water. We had a fence around our pool, and our older kids had learned how to swim.
One day, we were visiting a neighbor, and all of a sudden, I couldn't hear Emmy. That silence was terrifying. Then I saw a tiny sliver of light where the back door had been opened. I ran outside and saw Emmy in the pool. We couldn't save her. As a mom, I want other parents to know how fast drowning can happen. It takes moments. You have to be vigilant, as if it's a lion waiting to snatch your child.
Drowning is the #1 cause of injury-related death in children ages 1 to 4. We believe it should be the #1 thing parents talk about when it comes to safety. This is urgent. If you have kids, please talk to your pediatrician about how to keep them safe.
The Loose Cannons with Steve, Rich, and John. Afternoons at 3. KLSD AM, KGB FM, HD2, San Diego.
And welcome on into the nation's longest running and highest rated radio show on the concept of sports investing. This is Sports Investors Weekly. Of course, sponsored by the good people over at freewinners.net. Visit them online, www.freewinners.net. I'm your host, Damon Roberts. And I'm joined, as always, by the one and only Mr. Dapper, Mr. Paul Nolan. Paul Nolan, how are you?
Good morning, my man. How you doing?
Very well. And live from Las Vegas, joining us on the phone, as he does each and every week, it's the one and only Jimmy Tags. Jimmy Tagalemente, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, fellas. Great to be here.
Very good. The number 888-366-3733, 888-366-3733. Lots to get to here. Week 2 college football, week 1 of the NFL season. NFL season kicks off. College football as well to mix in. But again, I'll start with the number, 888-3. Makes $5,000. Paul Nolan, first time you've ever offered this.
Don't create a real foundation. People don't create a real,
Check test 1, 2, 3. Check 1.
Mic check. Tiger Palafox. Mic check.
Yep.
What? What?
Promise we won't let you down.
Yeah, man. 888-366-3733. Already off to an amazing start. Week 1, amazing. We gave some free plays here on the show. You guys did great. Executive service, of course, killed again. I know the team's fired up about this weekend pass. Again, people need to call 888-366-3733. And again, don't judge me on one game. Take the weekend and see where you stand Tuesday morning.
Yeah, you need to see a body of work to understand what we're really capable of doing. Anybody can say, yeah, I got a free pick today, and you call up for that free pick, and it's a winner, God bless. That doesn't mean that they're great. And conversely, you lose a game.
Hey, good Saturday morning to you. Welcome, Facebook listeners and viewers. We are back live in the studio on this beautiful Saturday morning here in San Diego. Woke up to some fog, but humidity and a lot of hot temperatures throughout the past week or so. Those across the country experiencing some of the same thing. You'll see there's John Bagnasco, nice-looking John, looking at the camera this morning, waving at the people. Thank you, John. Tiger Palafox, I'm Bryan Main. Welcome. 2 hours, no guest today. It'll just be the three of us and you with your questions and your comments. Tiger, we're set up, ready to go. Hopefully things are looking good here on Facebook. We've got a lot of things happening in the next couple of 2 or 3 weeks that have to do with a new way of delivering our show through Facebook. And, of course, today, if you're listening or will be listening on Biz Talk Radio, we are replaying a show back at the end of, was it July, John, when we had Matthew Brumley on?
Right, July 27th, I think.
Okay, so those
we had Matthew from Earthbound Expeditions, and we were talking about our trip to Slovenia to the International Wildflower Festival next year. So if you can pick that up anytime.
Sure,
right?
You can. In fact, if you want to listen to that show right now, you can do that. It is also uploaded on our YouTube channel, all podcasts and previous shows on YouTube. And, of course, if you scroll down Facebook, all the shows are right there, too, all the videos. So, again, several ways to watch us, several ways to get the information you need. Again, today, no guest, but we'll take your questions, your comments, and, of course, talk about that big trip John just mentioned to Europe in 2020, all those exotic countries that you're going to be taking us to, John.
The trip is selling out fast, so don't wait.
Yeah, that's what I hear, that people are jumping on that bandwagon.
It's, we had somebody sign up over the weekend, or during the week, I guess it was, and their comment was the reason that they're going is that it's a trip they would never plan for themselves.
That makes a lot of sense. I wholeheartely agree with that.
Yeah, they said, you know what, we would never think of going to Slovenia.
Or combining those countries together. Right. It's not, a lot of people go to France, they go to England, they go to Russia, China. That's great. This is a different trip. Tiger, your thoughts on the trip?
I think that, a lot of people are going to enjoy what John just mentioned as far as the different aspect of it, because this isn't someplace that people would normally go for a garden tour because it's not the top of the list,
or would they even know there's a wildflower show
but
there.
That's why you should definitely go with us, is because we're going to show you everything that you need to know while you're there, and it's experience again. So I think that the trip, all in all, going to these locations, people go, oh, I would never have thought that, but then when you get there, you realize why.
You're glad. And we try to do this. Our trips to Europe, we try to tailor them and make them a little different. You can go to AAA. You can go to any travel office, whatever, and they can set you up on various trips. They're mainstream, but then again, they're not mainstream. They can tailor various trips, again, like you said, that you wouldn't even think of.
The last time we went on a trip, we met up with Matthew's family. Yeah. It was his mom, his mom and dad, wasn't it, John?
It was.
At Oxford College? No, not.
At Oxford, and we met in the
dining hall
from Harry Potter.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was just so neat to be able to be like, oh, hey, there's, like Brian's mentioning, it's really catered towards whoever is on the trip. Hey, look at that! I got a logo up there now. It finally worked.
Well, we have a lot of like-minded people on the tour. You're traveling with fellow gardeners,
Absolutely.
so you have people who are interested in seeing what you want to see. And there's enough going on besides gardens that even if you're not a gardener, you would enjoy the trip.
Yeah, there's something for everybody. And again, is there an itinerary? Of course there is. Can you go out on your own? Can you decide not to take a certain?
No, you really can't.
You can't. You're
not
stuck
an
to
option.
what we're.
You have to go with us.
Okay, see, I was going to say that you do have some free time.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you were going to say that they could tour somewhere.
No, we're kidding. But what we're trying to tell you is if you want to take some free time while you're with us, maybe one day you don't want to go on a particular trip
Maybe
that we're
you want to go play golf, right?
Yeah,
Brian?
do whatever you want to do. So that's what's happening. 2020, the first 2 weeks in June of 2020. Go to earthboundexpeditions.com for all the details and information. It's going to be a great time, but don't wait because it is filling up fast. More on that as we continue the rest of 2019 into 2020.
Your wife says you should wipe your face, that it's shiny.
I have a shiny face, huh?
Shiny face.
I have a shiny face. That was the makeup that was applied beforehand. This is how big the show's gotten.
Maybe that's
now.
not what she meant. She said, nice to see your bright, shiny faces.
Oh, I thought she was talking about the new makeup artist that John hired. Last week after John watched one of our videos, he said, out of my own expense, I'm going to hire a makeup artist to come in there.
And they put on that clown makeup on you. You looked really good.
I thought so. I liked it. Anyway,
right.
Tiger, busy week at Mission Hills Nursery. What's happening?
So this weekend on Sunday at the nursery, we're having a farm-to-table event where there's a bunch of different restaurants and vendors locally here in San Diego that focus on, sourcing food here locally. And so we've been getting ready for that. It's going to be a fun event. It's going to be on Sunday. And it's a great opportunity for people in the community to kind of see what's out here in our local community when it comes to farm to table.
You do this every year, right?
No, this is a brand new one.
Oh,
so
great.
Yeah,
Great.
so it's going to be quite a event, but we've been getting ready for that. So we've just been getting the nursery spruced up, which right now, oh man, and I hate to sound like I'm complaining, but it's hot.
You're too young
it's
to
hot
complain.
and humid. It's hot and humid right now.
It is very hot, yeah.
And so every little task that you do just seems exponentially harder. So there's not even a lot of inventory at the nursery. Because it's summertime and you kind of shrink down your stock at this time of year because you don't want to really take care of it over the summer as much.
Exactly.
But
John knows that.
But at the
That's
same
true.
But at the same time, we're trying to get the place spruced up and looking good, and just it seems like every little thing that we do is just harder to do because it's so hot and humid. But nonetheless, it'll be a good event, and the nursery looks really nice right now. We got in. We're starting to get in some of the fall stuff, but it's still pretty early to some degree. You know what I'm seeing all over the place, John, and you've seen it probably too, just being out and about in town, is mums.
Well, you know what? Because mum's the word, right?
Yeah.
In most of the country, that's appropriate.
Yeah.
It's certainly not appropriate for Southern California.
No, I mean, not even Central California, I feel, can have mums right now. But, you go all over and you're seeing chrysanthemums, and right now, if you buy one, it's only going to last you a few weeks.
Yeah.
And it's going to
not
melt.
A good idea.
And, it's got to be cooler.
Don't do that. Don't do that to yourself.
No.
You'll be disappointed.
Yeah, I'm trying to hold back from a rant here.
Yeah, you are. I know, because we talked about this last year.
It was the big box stores destroyed the mum market for Southern California.
Because of the same thing that we're talking about right now.
Well, one of their marketing strategies used to be that they wanted to be the first store on the block to have
anything. That's why they bring in poinsettias in October.
Yeah, exactly.
So when they moved to California, they obviously don't have experts in gardening, though they have people who play them at corporate. But what they would do is they would say, okay, we want all our stores to be the first with mums. So we want, and they tell their growers, we want mums in the stores in August, which is fine if you're in Michigan or Minnesota. But in California, like Tiger said, the heat is just going to burn them up. The other thing that was, I thought, really sad was that the mums that bloom that time of year are little small mums, usually button mums.
Yeah.
And
it's the only one that's blooming.
Right, and the big mums, the Fujis and the spider mums and the football mums and the ones
that look good
that people really like because they were so unique, and the ones that they used to have mum shows just like they have rose shows, and people would exhibit those. Well, those don't bloom until October into November.
Yeah.
Which in the rest of the country is snowing, so they're not going to grow them anyway. But in California, that'd be the perfect time for those mums because our heat's over by then. So those mums will bloom. They're not going to be affected by the heat. But growers don't grow them anymore because the box stores all want their mums early.
And because all the growers are now making room for poinsettias, which, they don't. So at the time of year that mum that John's describing would be in stores, now every store is filled with poinsettias because they brought in the poinsettias earlier now. I mean, that's, trying to expand on it, they developed that orange poinsettia to try to bridge that gap between
to make it look autumny
October into
put it with pumpkins.
Yeah, exactly.
For Thanksgiving.
So buyer beware, seriously.
Well, also now poinsettias have been bred so that they're not daylight sensitive. So a lot of the varieties that are used don't need black cloth. They don't need short days. So they're just going to bloom, and they can bring those in at any time, which is kind of nice if you want to grow a poinsettia at home because you don't have to stick it in the closet anymore.
Yeah.
But the one thing I will say that's happened recently in the past 3 to 4 years, though, is, and I know I'm kind of shooting myself in the foot from a local nursery standpoint, but I'll be real and tell people right now that those mums that John is describing, I can't even get because, again, the growers are the ones that are going to dictate what's available, and unless I grow it myself, but I can't even get those plants anymore, like John is saying, so therefore they just don't exist. But the wonderful thing nowadays is that online there's a lot of options. I mean, we were talking about plumerias, the other day. And, I brought in my Lord Byron flower to be able to show.
Which I thought looked like a hibiscus from a, first glance.
Massive plumeria flower. But, these kinds of plants, they weren't even available before because unless a specific nursery or grower had it. But nowadays you can find these plants online and you can get them shipped to you. And, John, I mean, those mums, I know that there's mum growers out there that do mail order stuff. Would that be something that they'd be finding available now, or are we too late already for it? Or
too late for this year.
Yeah.
But the one mum grower that grows all those types of mums is King's Mums.
King's Mums.
So if you go to their website, you can start placing your order, I think, in January.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about mums is how fast they grow.
Oh, yeah.
So you can order a little plant at the beginning of the year, put it in the ground, and you'll have full-size mum plants by the time fall comes around.
And then in terms of mums, since we're on that topic too, I don't have really seen a lot of problems with them besides, you know what I'm saying, like bugs or disease. They're a pretty hardy plant in that way, unlike some of the other more tender perennials that maybe are susceptible to things. But, aside from deadheading constantly, they're pretty easy to take care of.
It's just
if you want the large flowers, you have to disbud.
Yeah.
Because you can really only have one flower per stem to have those huge flowers. And on the mums that, actually all mums have multiple flower buds on one stem. So usually you leave the one in the center and pull off all the ones on the side, you'll get larger flowers. It's almost like thinning fruit, except you're thinning flower buds.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense as far as, you are thinning fruit. There's a lot of energy going into it. So
there's the mum situation.
Yeah. Yeah, so
mum is not the word.
No.
That should be a T-shirt. Mum is not the word. And on the back of the shirt, ask me why.
Yeah.
Okay, I was going to say because I don't get it, but if I could ask you,
mum's
I'd
not the
feel
word.
comfortable.
Ask me why. Exactly.
It's funny because you hit, without even watching Facebook Live right now, you hit 2 different comments. Somebody said mum's the word.
Right.
And then another person said, do you have any Garden America T-shirts?
Yeah, you know what, Rick? We've been talking about that T-shirts.
We used to.
We used to.
Well, we had Garden Life.
We had Garden Life T-shirts.
Right.
You know what? Maybe that's something we think about. See how
we
should have some
that,
merch.
as I recall.
Every good Facebook and YouTube page has a merch page.
Yeah.
We need some good merch.
We'll get some.
So here's what I want to people on Facebook. This is great that you're commenting. Do you want T-shirts? Do you want polo shirts? And more important, we do podcasts every week or try to. Give us your podcast ideas. What do you want to hear us talk about? You can email John at gardenamerica.com or post it on Facebook.
Yeah, and today, after the show, we're going to be talking about trees. Because
trees is our
that
podcast
time of
title.
Year, where we're getting into the fall, so you got to do some prep work for your trees.
Okay.
Right now is the time of year when there's fruit that you should be harvesting and all of that fun stuff.
Now, we'll carry that podcast live on Facebook after the show. So, again, you can watch it. It'll be uploaded on Monday. You can click the link in the newsletter to go listen to that podcast and other podcasts. And you can also go to our YouTube channel, Garden American Radio, and watch it again. The good thing about YouTube is you can fast forward, rewind, go through the commercials, and save all that time. Now, today, of course, Facebook Live, no commercials. We are commercial-free for the next couple of hours.
Wow.
How's
By
that,
the way,
John?
Dana passed a correction along. She said that bird is the word.
Oh, bird is the word. That's
bird.
right.
You're saying
bad.
mum's the word.
Yeah, bird is the word. You have to. Do you know bird is the word?
Yeah, that song, Bird, Bird, Bird.
Look
Bird
at
is the
that,
word.
huh? That's early 60s. I'm proud of you.
I don't know who that is.
The Trashmen.
Whoa.
Yeah, the Trashmen.
What about the
from the old surf era? It's
Yeah,
an old surf
yeah.
song.
Tiger knows that song? I bet Tiger knows Baby Shark too.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Do you know that, Brian?
Baby Shark?
See, you
I
don't have
should know
kids
He has nobody in that era.
Right.
With
What era are we
kids.
talking?
right now, current.
Oh,
Yeah.
you know what? No, I haven't heard that song.
It's I would say it has millions and millions of hits.
Or
Yeah.
if I
Oh, yeah,
did,
yeah.
I'm not putting the title together with it.
No,
It's
if
a
you
modern-
did, you
I would
wouldn't
hear
even
it.
question.
It's a modern day row, row, row your boat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Baby Shark?
Yep.
Well, it's
okay.
Baby Shark, and then there's different voices, and there's Daddy Shark.
Grandma shark. Yeah. Everybody gets a shark.
It's
So anyway,
repetitive.
questions, comments, Facebook Live. We're talking gardening, believe it or not. You want to talk sports, we can do that. You want to talk Baby Shark, we'll do that too. Again, commercial-free on Biz Talk Radio right now. If you want to go back and listen to that show, it was the episode we talked to Matthew Brumley about the trip to Europe in 2020. John at gardenamerica.com, questions, comments on Facebook. And again, we're taking your ideas for future podcasts.
Yeah.
Well, Mark
somebody
wants to
wrote
talk a little bit. Oh, you were going to say that, Tiger?
microgreens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't you
Hey,
talk
Mark,
a little bit about
good
that?
comment, Mark, on that. Thank you very much.
That's
Yeah.
something we can cover right now.
Yeah, microgreens. You know, the nice thing about microgreens is that anybody can do it any time of year.
Anybody,
Because
anytime.
You usually do it in just a kitchen window or a well-lit room.
So what are
you
we
know,
talking
microgreens.
about when we're talking about microgreens?
Microgreens.
To the layperson, what does that mean?
So, you know, when we're talking about microgreens, we're talking about plants that are during their kind of infant stage. They have a good value of different vitamins and minerals, and you eat them at a young stage. So these could be an oat, they could be a bean, a pea, not a pea, like an oat, or there's
Radish seeds. Sunflower.
Sunflowers. Really?
Yes, sunflowers.
Yeah, you're right.
Wow,
You're right.
it's sunflowers.
But they grow them but they harvest them at the small state, you know, and
Okay.
because when they're young is when they have this high concentration of vitamins and minerals, and they use them, you know, sprouts. That's what I was trying to think of.
And it's usually before the true leaves have formed, right?
Right.
They've either just started or you have the cotyledons.
And it's real tender.
Yeah,
forward. Like that's
yeah.
the point, is to get it before it turns to that kind of, you know, leathery leaf, hard leaf.
Right.
But again, the reason why I say anybody can do that is because these aren't things that you plant and wait 6 to 8 weeks for or months to grow out. These are things that you usually do in a small tray, and people put them usually in their windowsill, and they just keep them damp. And then when they sprout and they get 2 inches or so, it's almost like they just go with scissors and harvest them. And just like sprouts, you can put them into a salad, you can put them into a sandwich, you can garnish your meal with it. But they add either a bitter flavor or they add a nutrient, or you know, sometimes they'll add a little bit of sweetness flavor depending on what you're growing to whatever you're eating. And you kind of harvest, but then you can grow a small amount to what you're going to use in one time or so, but then have them just keep coming on because you're only growing them weeks. You know what I mean? Like rather than waiting 3 months to grow out a tomato, you only wait 2 weeks until you have a new selection of microgreens. So you always have these in sequence. So you always have something to be able to harvest. So, but it's like I say, it's real quick and it's really easy to do.
Be a good thing for kids. Would kids like that?
Oh, they would love it. I don't know if they would love eating them as much. I mean, they're kind of fun to eat.
But
for
I mean,
a kid.
the whole process of what you're talking about. Maybe.
Yeah.
Sometimes when it's fun like that, you can kind of trick them into eating something because they feel a part of it.
Right.
You know, hey, you
that's
did
the
this.
thing is
You
like,
helped
you might be able to trick them into eating them because they did grow it.
There's a lot of sprouters available online too from different companies.
Right.
And they're just little plastic boxes, and some have different trays.
Mm-hmm.
So Tiger's talking about, it might be 2 weeks from the time you put in your seed till you can use the sprouts. But some sprouters have another tray down below, so you can start 1 week and then the following week start another tray down below and keep alternating so that you have a constant supply of microgreens.
Yeah.
Rather than having to
wait.
eat a crop and then start a new crop.
Now, Mark's other question regarding that, seed starter pads or soil?
So on that, so that's kind of like, to me, whether
it's more like hydroponics almost.
Well, to me, seed starter pads versus soil for microgreens is kind of like either you're a K-cup drinker, coffee person, that you just get the cups, you put it in the machine.
Right.
That's like a seed starter pad to me.
Okay.
It's kind of real easy, but at the end of the day, you end up throwing it away and, you start over afresh. So where soil, you can harvest it and you can kind of almost reuse it to some degree. So it's kind of like having your own coffee and grinding it and kind of doing that. One I don't think is necessarily better than the other, except for the fact with soil, you usually have more problems with, you can either overwater or you can underwater, or you might have some gnats or other fungal things.
Soil can bring its own set of problems.
Yeah, and I don't think that there's anything in soil that would hurt the microgreens per se, like they don't develop like a root rot or anything, because again, we're only talking weeks at a time. But you do have an area where maybe like if this is in your kitchen, sometimes you don't want gnats or little flies or maybe an odor, kind of a thing in your kitchen.
Or just dirt.
Yeah, or just dirt in your kitchen.
Right.
Where the seed starter pads are very nice and clean.
Sure.
And, you don't have to worry about that problem.
That's a good question, Mark. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
To bring that to our attention.
I don't think
I think I would get a seed sprouter online.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just one of those trays that you put in it. They're clean. Yeah. They're easy to clean
out. No muss, no fuss. Don't worry about the soil.
Easy to harvest. And then there's a lot of companies online that sell large packages of sprouting
seeds. Yeah.
Yeah. Botanical Interest has them.
Yeah.
I'm sure almost every big seed company would have those available.
Okay. I hope that answers your question, Mark. I appreciate it.
I think the hardest thing for people for growing the microgreens is the water balance, because it is a seed, so you do have to keep it damp. But then I think people overwater too much as well, so you just got to be careful with that.
Wet paper towel.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think that's the biggest mistake people make, or they don't harvest as much as they should, and then they try to carry it on, but just start over again. I mean, a package of seed is only $3 or $4.
Nothing.
And you get so many in them that, if you throw away a few, it's a bummer, but just throw it away and start afresh, because you try to carry it through and you regret it later on.
And Kathy used to make various sprouts in a large jar.
Yeah.
Different ways to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, questions, comments on Facebook. That's the way to do it. Start a conversation, start a topic, and you can talk to each other, and we can, from there, speaking of sprouting, sprout into other subjects. Yeah. What do we have here? Let's see. A very inexpensive LED light. Will it work?
That was a question.
Yeah.
Would it work?
Yeah, will it work?
For growing stuff indoors.
Are they hot enough?
So LED
they don't need to be hot.
And LEDs don't always give off what plants need to grow.
Yes, exactly. In other words, what an LED, are you talking about photosynthesizing?
Yeah.
In a way?
Because the reason why you would use a grow light is because it provides the plant with all of the different frequencies for it to grow.
That the sun would give you, kind
Correct.
of replicates what the sun has.
Yeah. And if you use just a basic LED light bulb, you know, it's not going to be the same as if you used a grow light. So it kind of depends on
Get a grow light, do it right.
Well, it kind of depends on what you're trying to do. If you're just trying to have a room with some plants in it, you know, LED light would be good. But if you're trying to do microgreens or you're trying to
specifically do something,
grow plants, you know, meaning like starters and things like that.
Do you even need light for microgreens?
You don't. You do need light.
You do?
Yeah. Yeah, because I know you say you start them in the tray, but once they get to that, you move them to that top tray and they have that little bit of foliage. Otherwise, they'll just keep getting longer stems. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's the whole photosynthesis.
Yeah, it's that whole photosynthesis thing
all over again
that we talked about.
Well, you know, like for instance, if you think of mung bean sprouts,
I think of them every day.
Those are all grown without sunlight.
What's the key? What's the secret?
Well, I'm trying to think of the difference between sprouts and greens.
Well, that's what I'm saying is the sprout, it doesn't need the light because you're not getting the foliage. You're just using the stem.
So you can go ahead and eat the sprouts without any light at all. But
Right.
if you want to maybe get some more nutrients into the greens, to the microgreen part of it, you do need some sunlight.
And a lot of times,
source of light.
Like sprouts, you notice they have the real small foliage on it, right?
Right.
But microgreens, they're a little bit bigger. They have more
Right.
green to it,
Right?
And that's why I'm saying you need that.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
You know, when you're starting off the seeds, they don't need light, but eventually they move to
they
that
do
top
need
tray, and then you need the light at that point in time.
And then Carolyn's
But-
comment: mung beans grown in a tray in the pantry for Asian cuisine. It's easy. It doesn't take very long. That's what she does. That's what
Well,
she
and
does
those
it.
are sprouts.
And those are
as
sprouts.
opposed to
Those are
greens.
because
Right.
you're not getting the foliage on it, like a radish green kind of a thing. It's cool what people do in their kitchen, though, because we just talked
Right?
about why would you want to do that in your kitchen? You said, why do you want soil in your kitchen? But I mean, people put like compost scrap buckets in their kitchen, and then they have, like you're saying, like sprouts. They'll grow them in their kitchen, and
Yeah.
things. It's real neat what people grow in their kitchen.
I thought you were going to say, what's the difference between Sprouts and Whole Foods? And I was going to say, location, different company.
Yeah. Big difference in companies.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so Facebook is alive and active. We do appreciate that. Again, our previous show being heard right now on Biz Talk Radio. So, John at GardenAmerica.com, you want to shoot John an email or right there on Facebook Live is your best bet as we continue the dialogue back and forth.
You know, it would be better not to send me an email, especially since if you're listening to this, you're already on Facebook.
That would make most
Right,
sense.
and that way I don't have to go back and forth.
But sometimes people, John, just that little personal aspect, they like to send you an email so they can tell their friends, hey, guess what I emailed today? I emailed John Bagnasco.
What is the iHeartMedia address if they want to send you an email?
bmain at iHeartMedia.com.
Okay. bmain
at iHeartMedia.com.
I might send you an email.
Okay.
So I can't go back and see who had asked the question about the LED light. But
I think it was Mark.
That was Mark.
So, you know, one of the things that's cool that I've seen recently, in trendiness, when you're looking through like catalogs,
what is trending today?
And you know, these things that show home improvement, they show a kitchen. One of the things that's common to do is, you know, you have your kitchen countertop and you usually have a cupboard above it.
Yeah.
And they would put lights that would shine down on the countertop. Well, now those lights, they're switching them out to like a grow light string or grow light bar. So that way underneath your counter or on your counter, underneath your cabinet, you can put your basil, cilantro and things, and they would get the light required to grow, you know.
So that's like, you see, this is kitchen lights that they come that way.
They come that way now. And now kitchens are designed to have a place on your countertop where you can put plants, you know, or herbs or things like that. And they're designed so that way you can put a little timer on that light to make sure it's always going to get a good amount of, you know, light if your kitchen's very dark. But that was something, you know, with the modernization of light bulbs and being able to put these grow lights into small areas and, you know, all of that kind of technology that goes into shrinking down the ability to do that. Because, I mean, when 15 years ago, a grow light, a big
That was a
deal.
huge deal,
Like,
yeah.
and they were very expensive.
Oh, he's got a
and,
grow light.
You know, and all of that. But nowadays, they make them. They can fit underneath your kitchen cabinets, and you can have little herbs and stuff. If you have a dark kitchen, they're going to grow just fine because you have this area set up for them. I think that's kind of neat that they've incorporated the growing of plants into the kitchen as well.
Okay, let's switch topics here. Rick, of course, very active on Facebook. Rick, we love seeing you. Rick says, what was the most popular tomato this year? I thought the orange Brandywine was the best tasting of the ones I had grown this year.
Oh.
So what
we got that
what was the
comment
big tomato
from
this year, John?
Maryland up in
Oh yeah, she's Central California.
Yeah.
Right?
she had said the same thing about the orange Brandywine being
Best tasting?
one of her best.
Yeah, Rick likes it. Well, now was that our biggest tomato this year, John, as far as popularity? I guess that's what Rick is asking.
No,
it
wasn't.
It was not, Rick. Maybe the best tasting, but not the most popular.
Yeah, it's hard to say what the most popular was. Regular Brandywine's always the number one seller, but I would say maybe close to that this year was Virginia Sweets, because we did sell out of Virginia Sweets.
I keep thinking you're going to say Virginia Slims whenever you say that. Virginia Sweets.
Virginia Sweets. And that was the one where the year before somebody sent us a picture of a Virginia Sweets tomato on a scale, and it was 6 pounds.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It was huge.
Yeah.
Looked like a grapefruit.
Yeah, and it is a great flavor also. But orange Brandywine was a tomato that was developed by Tom Wagner, probably the most prolific tomato breeder in the world. And it's one that we actually selected at I think it was at a field in Merced, tomato trials, about 5 or 6 years ago. And now we offer it every year, but it really is a good tomato. Trying to think of some other new ones. You know, one of the
new good flavored tomatoes?
Yeah, there's a selection of tomatoes that A.P. Whaley puts out. And if you go to the A.P. Whaley website, you can read about them.
Okay.
And they're in a group that's called Cream of the Crop. And there's probably about 5 or 6 tomatoes in there, and they all have different characteristics, but all really, really good flavors. And I would check out some of those. And 2 of those tomatoes were All-American selections this past year. And one of the tomatoes, called Red Torch, I thought was especially interesting because it has a gene in it that's called the XLS gene. XSL gene.
Boy, listen to all this science.
Yeah, XSL. That's right. There's a group that's in excess, though.
It's in excess. You go back to the 80s, John, huh? Very good.
So what XSL stands for, it's easier to remember if I remember what it stands for. XSL stands for extended shelf life.
Okay.
And that gene occurs in a lot of tomatoes that are sold to supermarkets because they want the tomatoes to last longer. But unfortunately, most tomatoes that are bred that way don't taste good. So what happened with Red Torch is somebody bred a good tasting tomato for the homeowner that has this gene in it. So if you have a crop of tomatoes and you pick them, you don't have to eat them all at once. You know, Tiger, you've grown cherry tomatoes.
Yep.
And you know you go out there and harvest them, and you can't eat them all at once.
No.
There's so many. But with the Red Torch, you can hold that tomato for 2 or 3 weeks, and it keeps its flavor.
Wow.
So anyway, that's something new in tomatoes, and that's something to look for this coming year.
So, Rick, hope that answers your question. And again, I guess most people agree with you in terms of your favorite taste being the Brandywine tomato.
Did you grow tomatoes this year?
Actually, I did.
Did you?
Do you know Delana, who works here at the station?
Yeah.
Okay, she gave me 2 little tomato plants. I have no idea what they were. There was no tag. Just little ones. I put them in a huge pot, see what happens, and boom, I have a crop of tomato. I don't know what kind they are, though. No
Have
idea.
you eaten any yet?
No, they're still. They went through a very bad period, and I had to cut it way back, and now it's growing back again. Something got to it. I would imagine a rat or something when my tomatoes first started to.
Oh, yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's a race to get to it before they do.
Yeah.
But even when it's kind of a catch-22 because they're not ready yet.
No.
And the rats still get to them.
Yeah.
So you don't give them a chance to grow, and they've gotten to it before it comes to fruition. So
Yeah.
very frustrating.
Lenore sent me this week on Facebook some info. Last week we were talking about mosquitoes.
Oh, yeah.
Remember?
Sure.
Yeah.
She sent me the info on in Garden Grove. They have a problem with Asian tiger mosquitoes.
Oh, we had an article in the newsletter
Asian
about that a
tiger
few years
mosquitoes.
ago.
Yeah.
It sounds very bad.
Yeah. And well,
Doesn't it
giving
just the
tigers
name?
a bad name, right? So, because we were talking about the no-see-ums and we were talking about ankle biter mosquitoes, and I guess this is that mosquito that really just bites down on the lower parts.
This is
of your
Lenore,
body.
right?
This is Lenore, yeah.
She sent me a picture of one
Oh, really?
this week. Yeah, Facebook. She goes, by the
Yeah.
way, this is what I was referring to.
Yeah. So,
Because they're striped, right?
yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, I mean, this is the time of year for mosquitoes. Yeah, that's bad. But so
I haven't-
Asian
you know,
tiger mosquito.
I haven't come across any mosquitoes where we live, fortunately.
No?
Not at all. Now watch when I get home.
Yeah.
I'm surprised more people are not affected by mosquitoes when they get bit. What is it about that you can get bit but yet not get any diseses for the most part?
Well, that's the
Is
problem
it-
is that people do get diseases.
But
Have you heard of malaria?
that's
Have
my
you heard of West Nile?
that's my point. I've been bitten.
But you're saying the ratio, the
The
number.
the ratio. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But you know,
It depends where you are in
No.
the world,
Yeah.
because parts of the
it's-
world where those diseases are prevalent, you're more likely to get
right.
those diseases from a mosquito bite.
yeah,
For instance, we're not likely to get Zika
right.
from mosquitoes here, but if you were in Central America or Brazil, you'd have a higher possibility of that happening.
So you bring up a great point, which was what I was trying to say. When you listen to the media, watch TV, watch the news, they bring all this up. People just assume it's everywhere. You know, it's not just in that country. It's here. It's there. West Nile. Ooh, be careful. Malaria. You know, it's all. But like what you're saying, it's delegated more to certain parts of the world geographically.
Well, and it's because those certain parts of the world don't control like we do. I mean, as soon as we have anything near a small outbreak, let's say, of any problems, vector control in that community instantly goes in and takes action.
Yeah.
Whether it means putting mosquito dunks into our local ponds and lakes and bodies of water, or using other forms of sprays through communities. They kill that population of mosquitoes, so therefore it stops the
cycle.
Where those countries where that is a problem, they don't have that ability, or they don't do that. I mean, it's pretty.
John wants to chime in. I love the look on his face.
No, well, I just got a picture in my mind. Every now and then it goes off in a strange direction. And
Sure.
Tiger mentioned mosquito dunks, and I was picturing a flea circus with a little booth with the mosquito where you throw the balls and balls down into the water.
That's a great
mosquito
cartoon.
dunks. Yeah.
Why don't you draw that, John?
Yeah, that'd be a good one for
That's for you, Brian.
Okay,
You do those.
Summit Chemical would love that little cartoon.
Right? No, I'm working on a new one right now, which I like, which I think is one of the better ones.
Nice.
So we'll go from there. Anybody else on Facebook? Any new comments, John? Do you see?
I was going to mention while Tiger was while we were continuing our mosquito discussion, was that you still have to be diligent, even if those diseases are in other parts of the world. And a good example is West Nile virus. Obviously, it's from the Middle East, right?
Right.
Near the Nile.
Near the Nile.
Sure, yeah.
The Western Nile.
But, once those, because of travel the way it is, once those diseases take hold in certain parts of the world, they can easily be transmitted to other parts of the world, which is one of the reasons we were so diligent when the Ebola outbreak occurred, because we didn't want that to come over here. So it's always good to keep certain pests under control.
Well, stay ahead
Yeah.
of the game.
Yeah.
Don't wait till something becomes a problem.
It's funny how, because we're here in California, this is a very common thing for us.
Right.
You go 40 miles in any direction, you have some kind of checkpoint, because they don't want, we're a very agricultural location, and they don't want bugs or disease going all through the state to affect citrus growers or tomato growers.
You drive between here and Arizona.
Yeah.
And there's that fruit stop.
Oh, yeah, no, that's to put all of these things in check.
Sure.
But then when you go outside of California, where there are states that aren't as agriculturally driven, it's not as important. They don't understand. I mean, even in California, they tell you not to take firewood out of certain regions because that firewood could be carrying a beetle or something else that now you've taken this firewood with this beetle, and now you go up into the Cuyamaca Mountains where this beetle was never before, and now that beetle is there. And these are the little things that we think about here, and it's because we're so agriculturally driven, whether it's edible agriculture or even ornamental agriculture for California. I mean, one of the, largest states for ornamental plants, in all of the country.
Well, if you flew into Hawaii about, I don't know, half hour before you land, they hand out these sheets and you have to fill out everything that are you bringing this? Are you bringing that? Do you have this on you? And I guess that's their way of
they don't want
controlling.
Bringing in anything that's going to affect their place. And so, it's funny how we're so used to it, but not everybody is, as far as in terms of
very
knowing.
diligent. Now, even driving north, right? Is there a checkpoint on the 15 somewhere?
There's a checkpoint on 15 and the 5 right before you get into San Clemente for the 5, and right as you get into Temecula for the 15.
Right.
And then if you keep going even farther north on the 15, you'll hit another one, and on the 5.
And then again, as I mentioned, heading east from San Diego, going into Arizona, before Yuma or right around in there. Same thing, checkpoint. So they're very diligent about that.
Yeah.
In terms of things that
they are now.
Yeah.
There was
a time when it was the Wild West, John.
That's exactly right. We've talked about David Fairchild and how he's personally responsible for about 60% of the food that we eat in the United States. And that was because of his exploring and travels around the world in the early 1900s. But he also brought in things that became problems. One was Melaleuca, the paper bark tree, which in California is not a problem, but that's the plant that's choking out the Everglades.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah.
Along with all the loose pythons that people have let go. That's a huge...
pythons are climbing into the Melaleucas. Just add insult to injury.
Exactly.
So, you do have to be careful what it is that you bring in. I am chairman of the Save the Roses Foundation, and it's virtually impossible to bring roses into the United States from any other country in the world other than Canada. And part of that is because of the fact that they can be a host for different types of insects that will affect other crops, not necessarily roses, but other food-bearing crops. So because of that, they've put all kinds of restrictions, and it's really difficult to get roses. I have a shipment of roses I've been trying to get out of France now that I've been working on for 2 years.
Yeah, but even though they come from France, they've got to go into the Mexican border, right? Isn't that how they came across last time? They were held up at the border?
No.
Your roses?
No, they go from... when they come into the U.S., there's agricultural inspection stations.
And that's where they held it up for so long?
USDA has one in San Diego.
Okay.
And that's the one... But the one in San Diego is right on the Mexican border. Maybe that's what you're thinking of. Yeah, you have to drive right to the border.
So Mark put a link up, John, Wikipedia to David Fairchild for anybody that wants to click that.
Yeah,
and learn more. Thank you, Mark, for that. Appreciate that.
And I've mentioned this before, that probably one of the most important books I've ever read in my entire life, after the Bible.
And Dr. Seuss, Green Eggs and Ham. Let's put that up there, too.
I kind of liked Horton Hears a Who, but Green Eggs and Ham, it's no denying that's a classic.
Okay.
But David Fairchild wrote a book called The World Was My Garden. And I was working with a Hollywood producer one time on a possible TV show, and we met, and I told him about that particular book, And then we met again 2 weeks later, and he told me, I got that book, I read it, and I have to tell you, it's the most important book I've ever read in my life.
Really?
Yeah, which
Based
kind of
on your
surprised me.
recommendation.
Yeah, it surprised me because, he wasn't necessarily a plant person, but he was.
You okay there, Tiger? I'm going to ask you.
He was an Emmy Award-winning producer, and he still felt that way.
So what happened to your big TV show idea with this guy? This didn't become Saved by the Bell, did it?
No, it was right during the funding was lost because it was the recession.
Oh, boy, okay.
Right before Obama was elected.
Okay, sure, 2008.
Right, we had that recession.
It was the same year we started Garden America, by the way.
Really?
2008, and we managed to survive.
Huh. So anyway, because of that, the people that were going to fund the program pulled out.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
Because I would have glommed onto you somehow.
Oh, of course.
Ride those coattails of yours right to stardom.
Yeah, I'll have to tell you during a break sometime one of the comments that
we don't have breaks. That's going to be a problem.
We could take a break at the top of the hour and maybe go silent for a couple of minutes, and people on Facebook could just stare at us.
We'll do
hey,
that.
There's no sound.
Do
What's
that
going
at the
on?
top of the hour.
Because normally, if we're doing Biz Talk Radio Live, top of the hour news would be coming up, but no commercials. Facebook Live, no commercial free. How about that?
We've been talking
by the way,
almost an hour.
Almost an hour talking.
If you want to get that book, The World Was My Garden, it's not in print anymore. But if you go to Amazon, you might be able to find some copies. But definitely, if you go to abebooks.com. And I think ABE, if you want to remember that, a lot of people say Abe Books, but I think it stands for a book exchange. But you can definitely find old copies there, and you can get one. And I promise that you will really like that book.
And the cool thing about that, too, is old books, when you buy them like that, they have notes in them that people have written that kind of have their own note that they took about whatever they were reading or anything. And it's so neat to be able to kind of go into those old books that have those
kind of historical
people's
in a way.
Notes and kind of see what they were thinking or something that you didn't think of when you're reading it, and it kind of has the ability to make you think about it differently. I love getting old books like that because, you get old books that are, stories, and you might not see people's writings or something, but old books like that, you definitely have people.
It's like getting
that
somebody's old Bible
people
too,
have, where they've made their
notations
little
and
notes
stuff, and translating what it is that they read.
Yeah.
All right, I got to tell you one of my regrets now.
Okay,
brought this up.
And this is a new segment on our show. We forgot
John's
to tell
Regrets.
people. It's called John's Regrets.
Well, back in the early days of eBay,
I was on eBay back then too, going crazy bidding.
And I didn't have much money back then. Just like today, some things never change. But one of the books that had come up for bidding was a book by David Fairchild. And I don't remember if it was The World Was My Garden or Exploring for Plants, one of the two.
The World Is My Oyster? It wasn't that one.
But along with the book was a note in the book, a little short one-page letter that was written by David Fairchild and signed, and it went along with the book. And the price of the book got up to $90, and I thought, I don't know if
$90 for a book.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to bid that or not. So I went ahead and I put in $95, and with 10 seconds to go, I was the winner. And then somebody came in right at the last minute and bid $1 more than me.
They just wait, boom.
Yeah.
So you learned how eBay works in terms of bidding. Wait till the last minute.
Yeah, it was. But so I always wish that I would have had that letter from David Fairchild. It's probably worth a lot more today.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, the early days of eBay, a lot of things got put up that people just didn't realize. I think I mentioned to you. Oh, I know I mentioned to you because you told me how to go ahead and do it. That there was I think it was an ABC special called The Silent Spring of Rachel Carson that you can't see anywhere. And I thought that it had been lost, but apparently it's hidden away in the ABC or CBS archive somewhere.
Didn't you come across it, though?
there was somebody selling the 16 millimeter version of it, the real, on eBay, and this was the very first year eBay started.
The things people come up with.
Yeah.
I know, so I got it. I mean, I had no way to play it, but I just got it.
You just wanted it because you could take it and get that.
Well, now
transferred to a
I
different
have done
format.
that. Now I have to watch it because I have it on a DVD. But I did have that fixed and transferred over to a DVD. So it's going to be interesting to see what that was like because it was filmed the year that she died. I think she was actually dying of cancer while they filmed that special.
So we
Rachel
have a
Carson,
garden-
one of your favorite people.
We have a garden question.
Oh, back to gardening.
Yes.
Let's continue.
What should we do now to prep our garden beds for next season?
Now, next season meaning spring?
Well, that's what a question that I have. And they're in California. They said some city. I don't know where that is. But next season can be a lot of different things for different people. For instance, next season for me is going to be next month where I can plant my leafy greens, my spinaches, my broccoli, my cauliflower,
Veggie
things
pond?
like that.
Are we talking veggie pond?
Yeah, or just garden in general. For next season for people in Michigan means the spring, right?
Are you growing any vegetables or edibles not in the veggie pond? Are you taking that chance?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
I have things out. I have the loofah right now out.
What about
I've got
rabbits and pests and
strawberries?
stuff like
they
that?
don't bother that. I have
Okay.
strawberries that are protected, and then I have, and then nothing else right now. I'm kind of wrapping up a lot of the other stuff. But as far as
the person that was asking you is about 20 miles, 15 to 20 miles north of Chico.
okay,
So Northern California?
Northern Cal, yeah.
So
That's Phyllis. Thank you, Phyllis.
Yeah, so next spring or next season could be the fall for her in terms of she could be doing the broccoli, the cauliflower, the stuff. So in order to prep for that right now for your beds, if you're planting vegetables or flowers, it'd be clearing your beds, as far as any kind of leftover crops, and then reintroducing any nutrients that were lost. We talked about how you can do that in different ways. Well, one way is just fertilize your beds. Use something like milorganite. Drop it in there, add the nutrients that were used up throughout the last growing season, and it'll be good to go. A lot of people say, oh, well, you shouldn't plant in the same bed right away. And the theory behind that is, number one, is if you don't rejuvenate your beds, you need to let them rest because, there was a lot of nutrients that were lost. Number two is people, with certain plants, they don't want disease to continue.
I was going to say disease is one big factor.
But nowadays, I think a lot of that could be cured by the plants that you choose, could be avoided as far as in terms of, different products that we use nowadays that, control bugs and diseases and things like that. So, I don't see the harm in using the same beds as much as it used to be.
Right.
Kind of.
As long as you prep it properly and do the little things.
Yeah, so just add a little bit of organic material by buying some bagged compost.
And you should already
and then
have
add some
good biology underneath there anyway, though, shouldn't you? Or is that what you're talking about that's been taken out because of the growth?
No, you bring up a good point. And now through, really looking into soils, tilling is bad for your beds. They tell you not to till because you're breaking up that biology.
You're disrupting all the biology and good bacteria.
The way that they explain it is basically you just took an ant city and you just shook it up and you had them start over again.
Yeah.
And, the city that they had was just fine, but then you made them start it over again. And that's what they say about the biology. When you till, the soil's nice and easy for you to plant in, but all of that good
Wasn't that to aerate the soil? Wasn't that the thought behind that?
I don't know. Is that why they tilled? Did they think that folding the soil was good? Do you know, John? Or did they just make it because it was easier to plant?
I think
all
both.
of the above.
Yeah, I think both. Tilling the soil would be is to use another analogy would be like if you took a huge boat with giant propellers and drove it over a coral reef and just chopped it all up. And then
that is a good analogy.
Thinking that coral reef's going to do better.
Yeah, and that it eventually it would heal itself, which is the same thing that happens with soil. But you're destroying that whole ecosystem, and it has to start over again.
Hey, we're coming up to the top of the hour. 9 o'clock here on the West Coast, noon East Coast. Want to take a couple minute break?
Yeah.
Going to take a little break on Facebook. We're not going to go anywhere. Just a little bit of a break. Give us a breather. Give you a breather from hearing us for an hour straight. And then come right back in a couple of minutes. So stay with us. If you want to refresh your Facebook page, that's fine. We're not going anywhere. If you want to come up with questions or comments, too, you can do the same thing. This is Garden America. Bryan, Maine, John Bagnasco, Tiger Palafox. Facebook Live. Taking a couple-minute break here. Couple of minutes, I should say. Be right back. Stay with us.
On Extra 1360, KLSD AM, KGB FM, HD2, San Diego.
Breaking news. The Oakland Raiders have just released star receiver Antonio Brown. This after Brown said on Instagram just after 6 a.m. Pacific time this morning that he wanted the Raiders to release him. Well, they just did. Adam Schefter reports that last night the Raiders fined Brown $215,000 for conduct detrimental to the team, voiding the $29 million of guaranteed money in his contract. Again, the Oakland Raiders have just released star wide receiver Antonio Brown. I'm Isaac Lowenkron.
We are one. Now here's something we hope you really like.
This is the Jason McIntyre Show.
Yes, folks. Yes.
The Jason McIntyre Show.
You're not going to hear it anywhere else.
Jason McIntyre.
Because nobody else thinks like this.
That's what I thought. Shut up. The Jason McIntyre Show is now.
Do you understand?
Live from the Geico Fox Sports Radio studios. Here's your host, Jason McIntyre.
It's official, ladies and gentlemen. We start hour number 3 with big NFL football news. It's official. Antonio Brown, you're done. You are done. What a fraud this guy is. Unbelievable. Ladies and gentlemen, I am your host, Jason McIntyre, coming to you live from the Geico Fox Sports Radio studios. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on college.
We are back. Thank you so much, those that continue to watch us during the break as we discussed a few things here, some strategy. It is hour number 2, Facebook Live. Thank you for joining us here on Garden America, broadcasting live from the iHeartMedia studios in beautiful San Diego, California. Welcome, one and all of those back east. Good afternoon. Welcome to your Saturday afternoon. Welcome to the weekend. And we're going to be here for the next hour. Then after the show today, a special podcast, which will also be broadcast live on Facebook. Going to be talking about trees. And, hey, some more lighting. How about that? Forgot all about that.
Asleep in here.
So thank you for the light. Look how good John looks. Wow, that's good lighting.
Oh, wow.
Plus all the new makeup with the makeup artist that he hired. Thank you for joining us on Facebook Live. And again, Biz Talk Radio playing our show from, was it July 27th, John? We talked about the trip to Europe 2020 with Matthew.
Right, to the International Wildflower Festival in Slovenia.
Yes, this is going to be huge. Again, the first 2 weeks of June in 2020. Once again, John, the countries we're visiting will be...
Well, we're going to start out in Slovenia, but then we go from Slovenia to Austria, and from Austria to the Czech Republic. So we'll be in Vienna, we'll be in Prague, we'll have beer and wine tasting along with visiting gardens, staying in all 4-star hotels, 4- and 5-star hotels. And it'll be some of the most beautiful scenery you've ever seen in your life.
The Julian Alps.
That's right.
How about that, huh? The sound of music. Swirling around with the mountains in the background.
Yeah, I think she was in Austria during
the meadows.
That, but
she was probably in a back lot in Hollywood.
She might have been, but it'll look the same. I promise you that it'll be breathtaking scenery.
So the reason we bring this up is because we want you to go with us. There's room for what, 30, 35 people, John?
Yep.
Yeah.
So go to earthboundexpeditions.com. The itinerary is there. Now, when you go there, they have several trips there. Do they click Garden America when they go?
Well, there's different parts of the world for tours. So you click on Europe for the European tours, and you'll see them all posted there. And the one that you want to click on is the Garden America tour.
Okay.
And then there's a day-by-day itinerary where it says download brochure. You can see the hotels we're staying in, too.
So you can look
if you
at
want to look
everything.
those up, yeah.
And again, Prague, everyone says, most beautiful city in the world. That's what they tell us. So.
Well, not everyone. You know, Delilah says that she's been to better places.
Well, we're looking forward to that nevertheless.
Oh, it should be fun.
Should be fun. So again, earthboundexpeditions.com for details and more information. We'd like you to go with us. You guys had a great time in England. A couple of years before that, John and I, Sharon,
we missed you.
Italy,
you weren't in England with
Switzerland, France, south of France.
All over.
Unbelievable. Do you remember, this goes back a couple of 2 or 3 years, was he driving some kind of a huge truck? There was a terrorist attack in the south of France.
Oh, yeah. It was the area that we had been in.
So I come home from work. Right. I got the news on.
Just a week later.
And breaking news. So I had the sound down, Tiger, and I'm looking. I'm like, well, that looks really familiar. Where is that? There were palm trees along the way, the Mediterranean in the background. Our hotel was right on that boulevard.
Wow.
And it was no more than about a week after, John, that happened.
So is your point for our listeners to say that next time we might actually hit the terrorist attack?
No, I'm just saying that it's very interesting. Once you've been in a certain part of the world and then you see it again on TV for whatever reason, you can identify with it. I didn't mean to bring up a tragic story like that.
You learn a lot of new things. You know, even in gardening, you know, I'm well over 45 years old.
Not much, but yes.
And every day I learn something new about gardening. But when you go to other parts of the world, I mean, there's things that are just mind-opening. When we went, well, it was the trip we were on. When we went from Italy into France, the first town we hit was Mentone.
Mm-hmm.
And the Mentone lemons were available nowhere else in the world. And do you remember the hotel when we got there? They had lemonade made for us.
Already ready to go.
And I think that the shop next door sold limoncello made from the Mentone lemons. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I came back here and I talked to citrus experts, and it took them a lot of research in order to be able to find information about that lemon. Turns out that's the only place in the world it's grown.
And we were there.
Yeah.
These are the kind of things you can expect when you go on a trip to Europe with Garden America.
There you go. So Rick online says that it was his understanding that tilling came about because of the use of the introduction of chemical fertilizers. I don't think that's true because chemical fertilizers came about in the late 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
Was it von Liebig, I think, was the person who invented chemical fertilizers.
You're looking at Tiger and myself like we would know that. But
well, Justice von Liebig?
Yeah.
Nope.
No. You don't remember?
Nope. But
I was absent that day in school.
I can say that they've been tilling much before that.
Right. So
and I think
yeah, they were tilling before it, so it obviously had nothing to do with chemical fertilizers.
I think it came down to when somebody wanted to plant a field or an orchard, it made it much easier for them, you know,
because
they would
loosen up the soil,
they would loosen up the soil, and they would use a horse.
You'd have all the weeds from the year before that you'd have to till under to clear out.
Yeah, they would,
That's
they would do all of that, you know,
right?
and trust me, if I was a farmer back in the day before I had a horse, and then all of a sudden I started using a horse to till my field, but before I was doing it all by hand.
No, you had
I would use the horse.
An ox was pulling you. Two oxen were pulling you. Hey, I think Rick has another question. Did we answer that question? Oh, yeah, okay. Chemical fertilizers.
Right, and to go along with that, Mark said that what if the bed had plants, the one that you're trying to prepare for the following year, that had septoria, blight, the leaf spot, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's always a good idea to, you know, if you're going to compost that stuff, you want to compost it in a compost pile. Where it can heat up and destroy some of those disease-causing organisms. rather than till them into the bed that you're going to be reusing. You want to clear out all that stuff so that you don't have overwintering diseases and insects, especially in California where we don't get cold enough to kill some of those.
Because sometimes they'll say to spray hydrogen peroxide in pots, to try to prevent different diseases and things like that when you're doing, growing in pots. Mm-hmm. Can you use that in soil to do the same thing or no, do you think?
To a certain extent, but the scale you'd have to use it on
would be
larger.
Yeah, it would be overwhelming.
Yeah, okay.
A little bit of
so not even
you can do it.
So not even spraying the bed with hydrogen peroxide would help.
I don't think it would help that. You know, not as far as being antiseptic, but it would definitely help to add oxygen to the soil.
Yes, that would be a different thing, but not as an antiseptic.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
But kind of recap the idea of prepping the bed for the next season.
Right.
My 3 things that I'll do is add a little bit of organic material, because during a growing season, there's some that's lost, in the sense of like when you're growing plants in a bed, you're going to lose organic material because those plants are going to be taken away and take it all up. And so you got to add just a little bit, not a lot. Add a fertilizer, something organic, Milorganite, EB Stone Organics, Natural Guard has organic line fertilizers, something that's just going to add the nutrients back into the soil.
Replace what was taken away.
And then I would use a humate product, which is what we talk about, is just basically a concentrated organic material. So it's a granular form of the compost that I'm talking about in order to add volume. And that's just going to make sure that the life of the soil is kept in check, where the fertilizers that you use, it creates an environment where those fertilizers are taken up by plants better or available to the plant easier than if you don't use a product like that. And that's all you really need to do, I think, in preparing for the next spring or next season, is those 3 things, and you'll be good to go. You'll be ready to plant again, and you'll have some fun. I mean, it's a lot less work than I feel it used to be. A lot of people took a lot more work into it, and I think that you can do it easier with those products nowadays.
We got a big long comment from Jimmy Moore.
All right.
Jimmy Moore. Hi, John. MD here. See a friend of yours, John?
And any gardener's a friend of mine, but I don't believe I know Jimmy
MG
personally.
here. My next season starts this weekend. Sowing roots and leaves. I'm planning on developing 1 raised bed for asparagus, 2 available, 20 or 28 square foot, hopefully the next 10 plus years. I have 2 boxes with plants/crowns, 4 total. Also have seeds, assuming I will have to wait for spring for the seeds. How about the plants? I would love to get a jump start for next season. Any suggestions, thoughts, tips? Curious about the laying out of the bed, ratio of seeds to plants, spacing, etc. Thank you. Enjoying first time listening and watching. And thank you for being there, Jimmy. So the whole prep situation for Jimmy.
Well, Jimmy's in Maryland, too. So that's going to be a little bit different.
Yeah, you're different, Jimmy. When he says next season,
he's talking
springtime.
Right. Asparagus right now don't look like the asparagus we eat, right? They're big, green, ferny-looking plants. And they're planted when they go dormant. So if you're going to be putting in asparagus roots, and I think you can still get 3-year-old roots, right? Mm-hmm. 3-year-old roots are ready to harvest the very next season, where if you use younger roots, you've got to wait a couple years. But Jimmy makes a good point, because asparagus beds should be undisturbed for about 10 to 15 years. They'll just continue to produce. So you want to dig a deep bed, and you want to fill it with as much organic material as you can. This time of year, if you were going to wait till spring to plant asparagus, if you had access to horse manure, that would be amazing.
That would be the pot of gold right there.
Yeah. But anyway, any type of organic material. Seeds, let's see, Maryland, September. If you put in seeds this time of year, they would germinate. Whether they'd get enough growth to last the winter, I guess it would just depend on how quickly the first freeze came over there.
It's still pretty hot, I would imagine, in Maryland. Then you get into October, November, things cool
Yeah, it's
off.
just whether or not they would develop enough. I think I'd probably wait till spring for both. But definitely, if you're putting in seeds, you're looking at 3 to 4 years before you harvest
of
a
investment
crop.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be much better to go with roots. The other thing to do, while I'm thinking of this, Jimmy, if you are going to buy roots, buy male clones. You can do that. What you can't do from seed, if you plant seed, you're going to get a mixture of males and females, and the difference is that females do not produce the spears that you eat. Those are from male clones.
That would make sense.
Yeah, so you can. There's a few university strains out there, but if you get male clones, then you're going to get all edible asparagus, and you don't really need the females because you're not. That's only if you're going to try to produce seed.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've got your beds there, you don't need the seed.
Yeah, I was going to make that comment. A lot of people think like, oh, well, in order to have the plant, you have to have the male, female. But no, you only need that if you're trying to produce a seed.
Right.
You don't need that to produce the plant. The plant will keep producing no matter what. And so is he doing his whole bed with asparagus? Is that what he was describing?
It
the 20 by
like
28,
yeah,
just asparagus?
Sowing roots?
Yes,
leaves,
he has one raised bed that he's going to be doing for asparagus.
And was it 20 by 28?
Yeah, 20 or 28 square foot.
Oh, square feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 2 boxes.
That's a huge bed of asparagus.
It'd be like read that again to make sure.
4 by 8 or 4 by 7.
Okay.
Something like that.
That's not too bad.
Now you'd have, if you were doing 20 by 28, you could have a little roadside stand to sell asparagus.
Wow. Now,
well, Jimmy, thank you. First time listening and watching, Jimmy. Keep those questions coming. That was good.
Yeah,
that gave us a good topic to focus on for a few minutes.
Yeah, and asparagus is one of those crops that's nice to have in your backyard because at the same time, it's kind of like an artichoke where just having it,
it's good for you.
Well, it's kind of. You don't always have to use it. We talked about the tomato earlier and how when you get those single brandy wines, beefsteaks, tomatoes, you use them when they're ready and one comes later on, and then the problem with cherry tomatoes is that they always produce way more than you're going to use at one point in time. Well, asparagus, artichoke, some of those others, it's nice because artichoke will bloom one and you might not get to it or you might not want it, but then there's other ones that come off of it. And asparagus, they're always sending up new ones that you can, it's kind of like always having, a grocery store right there in your backyard that you can always go to if you want it. You don't have to wait until a certain time and then harvest it all at once. It's kind of, I like that about having asparagus in the backyard. My kids love asparagus too.
Do they really?
Yeah.
Well, asparagus and artichokes are vegetables that if you have too much of, you can easily share with friends who would be happy to see you coming.
Right.
Unlike zucchini, where you've got to wait till they're not home or you've got to sneak up and leave a bag on the front porch and run.
And then run away.
It's like when we were kids, you'd run up and ringing doorbells. Did you used to do that when you were a kid?
Doorbell ditch?
Yes, doorbell ditch.
We called it ringing doorbells.
And did you have the bag full of
no, we didn't do that.
And you light it on fire so they answer the door and they have to stamp on it and they don't know that it's in the bag?
No, we didn't do
we
that.
took it one step further.
Oh, yeah. That's a beach town kid.
It is it's an old PB beach thing we used to do.
Yeah.
Another thing we used to do would be to, I had a second floor house in my bedroom. We could see across the street. This is terrible. We would call probably 6 pizza companies and have pizza delivered across the street. So they would arrive one after another, and they would have to explain we didn't order the pizza. Isn't that terrible?
You were bad.
Yeah, that was last week.
You know, it's funny.
You know the statute of limitations has run out on that. That's the only reason
I'm
you're
okay.
sharing
I
this.
can talk. And like calling at that time when cabs, when you didn't have Lyft or Uber, you called, 5 or 6 cab companies to the same residence as well.
That's messed up.
That's really messed up. Look at John. John's looking at me like, I look at you.
You're
differently
different
now.
You're different. I can't look at you anymore.
I can't look at you.
Yeah.
I don't even know who you are.
But you mentioned the pet waste on the doorstep, but for gardeners, John just mentioned horse manure. For gardener, I mean, as long as you don't light it on fire, if you were to go bring a bag of horse manure and put it on someone's doorstep, that's actually pretty good, right? Like they'd be excited to see that.
If they're a gardener, if they knew what to do with it.
They lived in an apartment, maybe not.
See, I know what this is. I can use this.
Yeah,
This is fantastic.
Yeah, this is amazing.
Something smells very earthy. What is it?
You know, especially if you feed horses alfalfa, there's a rooting hormone in alfalfa that gets put into the manure too, so it really helps any kind of plants that you mix it with, especially roses.
No,
it's great for roses.
They use a rooting hormone when they grow alfalfa, or the alfalfa has that in the plant.
It's in the plant itself.
Okay.
The what was the one Greenlight used to make? It was just called Greenlight Root Stimulator.
Yeah,
right?
that was it.
Yeah, the rooting hormone in that came from alfalfa.
Oh.
What did buckwheat contribute?
It's a Little Rascal reference.
Yeah, quick one. Stream of consciousness. There was no filter there either. That just came out, and I'm glad that it came out.
You guys want an
way
update
it
on
did.
the roses that I dug up in Del Mar?
Please.
Well, let's see. Do our Facebook people want an update on the roses that John dug up in Del
I
Mar?
don't really care about them. I was asking you.
Yeah, I do. And the consensus is yes, John.
Oh, okay.
And they also said that despite your thoughts, they care about you. So go ahead, yes.
You know, I love all our listeners. So
And they love you,
and I'm
don't
here
worry.
for them, right?
We're here for everybody, of course.
So no matter how condescending I can sound at times, I don't mean it.
No, and we're here to help you, those watching and those listening.
So anyway, we told you that we had an emergency evacuation of roses. There were some really rare roses that came from France that were at a home that where the people were moving. It had been sold, so the roses had to be dug up. And my good friends from France, John and Becky Hook, it was their son's home, so we went over there to dig up the roses and dug them up. I took them home. It took me almost a week to get them all completely repotted because there was about 50 of them. And then we got hit with those 100-degree temperatures, or near in the 90s anyway. And it was just so hot that I was really concerned that I was going to lose them. You know, I put some shade on them so that they didn't get full hot sun. And to date, all have leafed out, put out new leaves except 6. And of those 6, I see 3 that are just starting with a little bit of growth. So it's possible that I may only lose 3. And
Now,
even
does it
on
help-
those, it's a possibility they may come from the bottom.
Now, I assume you're working with several different varieties of roses?
Oh, 50 or 60.
So do you
About
think,
50.
So the ones that are seem to be coming back are doing well. Is that possibly because of the variety? Are they more tenacious than the other ones?
Well, it's funny that you mention that because if you really want to get into it, it seemed to me that the Alistair Clark roses were the ones who, and he was Australia's most famous rose breeder back in the 20s, 30s. For some reason, his roses seemed like they complained the most about being dug up.
Okay.
And none of his put out new leaves, so I was afraid I was going to lose all of his. However, those are some of the ones that are just now starting to leaf out.
It's just taken a while.
Yeah, which is really strange. So I don't know if it had anything to do with the varieties or the species that he used in breeding. But anyway, some of the ones we transplanted, like there's a rose that just has a number. It's called Laos number 19, or number 19 from Laos. That's put out 2 to 3 foot stems already. And I see that there's flower buds at the end of those stems now, so that's going to be blooming.
Now, these are all roses that went through the same conditions, right? The same thing, dug out of the same house. So everything from start
but it
to
was
finish
just not
was the same.
the middle of summer's not the best time to move a rose bush. If we would have moved them in the winter, it would have been better. So caused a lot of fretting, but I'm really happy with the way that they.
Why did the roses have to be dug up to begin with?
Because the people were moving.
Right.
So
and they wanted to take them.
Most of those roses, they were the only rose in the United States of that particular variety. So if they were left there, the new people probably could, they couldn't care less about rose bushes.
Nor even know how rare these roses are.
Right. So we wanted to give them a good home. One of the roses, I'll tell a little story. John Hook said that he made a trip from France to the Fineschi Rose Garden in Tuscany, which we've mentioned many times as the world's largest private rose garden. And there was a rose called Princess Marie Dagmar, which is an old tea rose, and it was the only one that John was aware of. So he made a special trip over to that garden to get it, brought it back to France. In meantime, the original one in Italy died. So had he not done that, that rose could have been extinct. So he did bring one from France over here to Del Mar, which we dug up, and he mentioned to me, take care of that rose because, it's the only one in the U.S.
You've got a big responsibility, John.
And I was worried about that one because that also took a little while, but now that's all leafed out, and I took some cuttings, and the cuttings are rooted. So I might even have one in the auction this November. So anyway, that's the update. The roses from France all seem to be doing really well.
I replied to Rick's question online about alfalfa as a mulch, and I think he's thinking of like a cover crop. And I don't think they use alfalfa as that as much, but you mentioned buckwheat. And they do use buckwheat.
They do buckwheat.
They do use buckwheat as a cover crop, and they use some clovers as a cover crop. And the theory behind that is introducing nitrogen back into the soil. Those plants are what we would call nitrogen fixers, and so when you grow them and you let them grow in your bed, and then they grow out, and then you let them die off in the bed, and you kind of mulch your beds with that. They just add organic material and nitrogen, just like what we were talking about doing.
It does the same thing.
It does the same thing in between seasons for people in their beds.
Excellent.
And I didn't realize this, but I was told also a big reason why they did those in the past too was erosion. Like the whole Dust Bowl situation. When they would leave their beds. When they would leave their beds empty, they would create big problems with erosion or loss, and so they would plant them so that way it would still have root matter in there to keep from erosion happening. I didn't realize that.
Is it possible, Tiger? I know it's possible at some point to put the link up on our Facebook page for Earthbound Expeditions?
It was up there for a while.
Was it today?
On the Facebook page or on the feed?
On our on our page, our comment section where people
I'll put
are
it up right
commenting.
now.
Because I'm noticing what people are doing, and it's great. We've got let's see here. We have somebody put up, and you guys saw this a while ago. Well, there's David Fairchild link, Wikipedia with a picture. Thank you, Mark. And let's see what else we've got. Top Grow Lights. There we go, right there. Was that you, Tiger?
That was me.
Top Grow Lights. So
the tour information was on the picture itself, but you're talking about over on the right then.
Yeah, exactly.
Put a link. Got it.
Okay, there we go. It's about 27 minutes after the hour. Of course, you're tuning in to Facebook Live. This is Garden America. And following our show today, at the top of the hour, 10 o'clock Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time, we will also do a podcast today, which will broadcast live on Facebook. You can watch it. It'll be archived. It'll be on our YouTube page as well. Going to be talking about trees today following the show with our podcast.
I wanted to mention that what Tiger was just talking about, cover crops, that alfalfa is frequently used as a cover crop in cold climates because then it'll winter kill because it has kind of a taproot. So in warmer climates like Southern California might not be the best thing to use. But up in cold areas, it's frequently used and does make a good cover crop.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go, Rick.
Yeah.
And Rick is going to be in a cold area, Idaho.
Going to be in Idaho.
Yeah.
It's in Oregon now.
What would you...
Send us some French fries,
when you say
Rick.
cold climates, are we talking Northern California also? Or
no, areas where the
north?
ground would freeze, so you would kill the plant and not have to worry about it coming back.
So it has to be an area where the ground freezes.
I think that would probably be best.
Okay. Yeah, it's always crazy because, different climates with the growing and, the ground freezing. I can't even fathom
gardening like that. We're not used to that.
Freezing ground, you know what I mean? And it's amazing that plants can ever come back from that, but it's just exceptional to see those areas that can be under snow, and then in the spring. I think that's why gardeners back there, aside from them being shut inside,
they really have to work hard to garden.
Well,
really.
But it's got to be inspiring to see snow 1 month completely covered, and then in next month you can have it melted, and you see these things just emerge. That's pretty amazing. That's nothing that we see here.
Yeah, John, you were
the bulb snowdrops is called snowdrops because it comes right up through the snow and bloom.
Isn't that so neat?
Yeah. I'm going to loan you my book called Tilling the Tundra.
Oh, gosh.
Tilling the Tundra. Well, John, you worked at Frank's Nursery in Michigan, right?
I did.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happens during the wintertime at a nursery? What do you do?
Close.
You close up?
Oh, never. Absolutely never.
Never close.
Nope.
You're there for all their winter needs.
Frank's was, they don't do things like this anymore, but one of the things that they did after Christmas, because there's obviously no plants in the store, right, is they used to go to buy clearance materials from all these vendors, in New York and different places, and they would just bring in all this really strange material. And it's kind of like now when you go into sometimes a supermarket or even a home improvement store, you'll see a bin that has screwdrivers for $1 or 99-cent stuff. They would bring in all kinds of stuff, diaries, pictures. The most unusual thing that we ever had that I recall coming in that time of year was women's girdles. And
at a nursery?
At a nursery.
So
and it's just, the buyer got a good deal on them, and they put them in. And I remember, because I was at the time, I was either 16 or 17, and I had to display all this stuff. And I opened the box of girdles.
Va-va-voom, John.
And I'm not kidding. The one that I pulled out had to be like almost as wide as a yardstick.
You're holding your hands out here like you're telling
this is a girdle
story.
You're talking about?
Yeah, it was like as wide as a yardstick. And I remember asking the manager, if this would fit you, what would be the point? Because it's already so big.
Well, I think, so what you're saying
I think they were irregulars. That's why they got a good deal on them.
But you're selling things now that have nothing to do with horticulture or gardening. So it's just to keep the store kind of going and keeping it open.
Well, that was the strangest, right?
Just, hey, we still have stuff to sell. Come on into Frank's Nursery.
As the nursery evolved, it eventually developed a craft section. So that area that used to have all the junk in it,
right,
they had carried crafts, like candle making and beads and different types of things.
Frank's
like
Nursery and other things.
It was called Frank. They changed the name to Frank's Nursery and Crafts.
Okay,
and
interesting.
Other things. I like that.
And they got up to 350 stores, and then
that's like a Bed Bath and Beyond. Bed Bath and Beyond. I always say, hey, where's your Beyond stuff? Yeah. There's the bed. There's the bath. There's the Beyond. Well, interesting. Well, thank you for sharing that story, John. I always wondered about nurseries in the wintertime, and, you can't sell anything, so they would just buy whatever was available.
When I started with them, let's see, it would have been 1967, they didn't even carry house plants in the winter, which seemed really odd to me because people and it was just before the... Actually, I think it was 66 I started with them.
Yes, there were a lot of houseplants in the 70s and stuff.
Well, it was before the houseplant boom.
Oh.
And so when I was there, at the store I was working at, I told the manager, I said, can't you bring in some plants? He goes, it's too cold for plants. And I go, yeah, but, greenhouses still have them. So we brought in a load of plants, and within a week we had sold everything.
He took your recommendation.
He did, and started building, and within
revolutionized the industry over here.
2 to 3 years,
Bagnasco.
Everybody was carrying houseplants.
You're going to be in textbooks later on in life.
Right. Kids are going to be learning about you.
There was no one there to document that, Tiger. So now you know the truth, Tiger. You can pass this on to future generations.
Just like there's no video, film, or anything else of Wilt Chamberlain when he scored 100 points back in the early 60s. He's got 100 points. There's no video, nothing.
Nothing documented except for
newspaper articles. Whoever was there.
And game records.
Yep, that's it. No video, no film, no nothing.
Well,
same kind of crazy comparison.
He scored a lot of points, though. So
you mean off the court? Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Okay, Garden America questions, comments on Facebook Live. Anything you want to know? I think I'm up to date as far as what I'm seeing. I think we took care of Rick's questions.
Yeah.
We've been talking a lot of subjects today. We covered a lot of ground. And again, if you have any ideas for future podcasts, put them right there on Facebook, john@gardenamerica.com, and we'll definitely, cover it for you. Pick that topic and cover it. Today's trees.
Yeah.
Now, when you say trees, what do you mean trees?
Well, we're talking all trees because right now is the time of year when you need to get ready for the winter. A lot of people think that trees just can be left alone and they'll take care of themselves. But, if it's a fruiting tree, there's harvest to be happening. There's pruning that needs to occur, fertilization, bugs, all of that kind of stuff that's this time of year. And if they're ornamental trees, bugs are a big problem this time of year. Mm-hmm. And so treating with the right products right now to make sure that you don't lose that tree or have problems that carry through into the next year is what you want to see now. And this is the time you're going to see it because a lot of trees, you don't see these problems in the winter. So there are things you do in the winter to protect them, but this is the time of year when you're going to really see those problems. I mean, people are talking about right now when they have a dead part of the tree and the termites have infested into it. Well, the termites are there because of the dead part of the tree, but this is the time of year when you see it because you don't see termite activity all the time, but you're going to see it now. So that'll help you get ready for next year with your tree. And this is the time of year when you want to start thinking about, how it's going to be shaped, if it's growing. Right. If you're planting trees, there's the whole theory on do you stake them or do you not stake them? Or how do you stake them to make sure that they grow well and they grow strong? Because if you stake a tree improperly, it's going to create a weak tree that, you go to pull the stake out later on, it's just going to fall over. It's going to flop. But if you stake it properly, you're going to have a strong, growing tree.
Right. So that's going to be the topic, our podcast after the show, trees. And Tiger just gave you a sneak preview, John.
Yeah.
Something else that's really important for if you're going to plant a tree this time of year. And I'm going to save that for the podcast.
Good for you. Yeah. Nice tease. Very good. And that'll be happening in about a half hour or so. As we continue our show here, been talking for, an hour and a half, aside from that 2-minute break we took, top of the hour. Glad you're with us. Again, Biz Talk Radio with a replay of our July 27th show, and we're going to be getting back on track with that as well. So the shows eventually will be back on Biz Talk Radio in terms of newer shows and newer content. 37 minutes after the hour, john@gardenamerica.com, also Facebook Live as we address your various questions and comments.
We've got Jimmy. Thanks, guys. I don't have the patience for seeds. Plants only. Bed is ready to use now. Not looking for a crop this season. Any benefit or setback with burying plant now as opposed to waiting till early spring? By the way, I've planted a fall season of carrots, radishes, variety of lettuce, turnips, etc. sowed this past week. We have about 60 days till frost. Give or take a week or two.
Yeah, he's on top of it. Yeah, exactly.
Well, radishes, you only need 30 days.
30 days.
So
yeah,
it's time for even another crop on radishes.
You could do radishes, Jimmy, absolutely.
And the lettuces, for sure.
Yes.
No problem.
No problem there.
See, if only 60 days, that may not be enough for things like the cabbage crops. Carrots might be okay because carrots will take a freeze.
Will they?
Yeah. And there are some parsley and things like that will take a freeze. And I remember that my parents, being Italian, of course, used a lot of parsley. And in the winter, they would throw plastic, visqueen, over the parsley and all the way up until Christmas, go out and pull it back, so that the snow all went to the side and go down and pick parsley and use it. So there are a lot of hardy things that you can use.
Was he talking about the asparagus earlier?
Yes.
Yes.
So I think he's asking any benefits or setback with buying plants now as opposed to waiting till early spring. So, and he's not planning on getting any asparagus now. So
I just don't think that asparagus starts are available this time of year.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if you can find them. I don't think there's any problem. I think might be hard to find.
Yeah, right now the asparagus that's going to be harvested for bare root season, I guess you'd call it, that asparagus is out in fields, and it's got its leafy ferny type sprouts and stems that are building up the root system to make it large enough to harvest and then sell. So it would be really difficult to find this time of year, and if you did find it, it wouldn't be as hardy because those roots aren't going to be as strong as they would be if you put them in the spring. Yeah. So, yeah, I've never seen asparagus available in the fall.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, if you
learn
find
something new every day, so maybe somebody's doing it.
But there's no bad part. I mean, if you find it now and planted it,
right,
you would be just as
You're fine, right?
You know, than if you did wait in the spring and you found it, like John said, you're just going to find it and you're going to have it and you're going to know it's ready to go. Versus now, you don't know what's going on with it.
I had something tragic happen to me this past week.
Just mentioned
and you waited now 2 hours into the show, almost something tragic.
Well, I didn't want to start the show off.
We knew you.
Okay, well, hold on here. Let me get ready for this. Strap myself in.
All right. Well, I told you that we had some hot days, near 100-degree temperatures.
Yes.
And we had one day where this wind came up. It was so strong, it just knocked things over all over the property.
Was that the day that we had the rain, too?
It was.
That was a windy day.
Yeah, it didn't rain in Fallbrook, but I was in Vista, and we got pretty strong rain.
Thunder shower activity across the county. Yeah.
So anyway, I drove home and this mess was in front of me. It was like a tornado had come through and just thrown things everywhere. So I cleaned everything up, and then I looked over the hill and down below where the other roses are being stored. I saw that the cashmere cypress that Tiger had picked up for me had blown over. So I went down the hill to pick it up and restand it, and it wasn't hurt. It was fine, but it had fallen over onto a Hokkaido elm, which is a miniature bonsai type elm tree that I had in a 5-gallon can that was 50 years old.
Oh.
And it snapped it right in half.
Oh, no.
So it's still alive, and in another 50 years, it'll look as good as new.
My gosh.
Now, because, with bonsai and some of these things, they can get snapped in half, or you can wire them together. Is that an option for this one or no?
No, it would be like broken. I took a little miniature chainsaw and just cut it.
Oh, bummer.
So the good point about that, I guess, is that there were 2 stems.
Okay.
And so one is cut in half.
The other one.
And I'm going to see what happens, see how I can work with it.
That's so not on a different level. That's kind of like me with some of the plants I have planted that I have in my yard for mother stock and root stock kind of a thing. Not a mother stock. Like I have like dracaenas and I have some plumerias and other things that I just kind of use for mother stock because they're easy to grow. But the kids will go through and, Isaac being 4 will just swing bats or swords and things, and they just damage these things. Well, they'd make it where you can't use it, or they damage it to the point they break off a side. It's going to look weird, right? Yeah. So I have in my yard certain areas where they are not allowed to play just because I don't want them to just, accidentally but intentionally damage.
Don't go into that area of the yard.
Yeah.
Do they listen to you?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I kind of explained it to them, but with bonsai, whatever you have, there's so much time invested that's one of those things that you almost put a bubble around it.
Right.
Because one break, that could have taken you 40 years, 50 years to develop that. And then one wrong move and the branch snaps off.
One cypress falling over, it's all over.
Yeah. John was just being
careless. Had he not given you
John was just being careless, is what I think.
Maybe he was being a little careless.
Well, my son Joe, that's one of the plants that he really has always appreciated, and I think he moved it for me the first time that we moved, and so he's kind of coveted that plant. And I told him, we came by the other day, I told him what had happened. And he said, there's no reason that plant should have ever even been down there.
See?
Yeah.
John's just careless.
I knew I was waiting
and he
for
was
that.
right. He was absolutely right. And I had thought the day before, not of moving that plant as much as moving the cypress.
Yeah.
I was going to bring it up to the top.
Yeah. Especially because you probably saw the wind, because the day before it was a little windy too. And you probably started to think like, oh, there's things that are going to start to fall over here. We're getting in the winter time.
Are you
fall.
circling back to eventually blame Tiger?
No, he can't blame.
No.
Okay. All right.
No, what?
Well, because if he's the one that gave you the tree, I thought maybe, had he not given it to me.
I can't think of anything I blame Tiger for. I usually just give him credit.
He's got a lot of credit built up, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Which
You,
means he
on
can
the other hand.
Oh, I have no credit with you. Tiger can make a lot of mistakes, and he's built up a lot of credit. With me, I'm done.
Yeah.
I understand that. Okay, I think we're caught up on answering questions.
Yeah.
Comments. And again, trees, the topic of our podcast following the show today, which will also be broadcast live right here on Facebook.
I wanted to ask a technical question that our listeners aren't even going to be interested in. But, but why not? It's now 9:45.
It is 9:45,
and
yes.
you're waiting until 10 to do the podcast.
Thought we might wait till 10.
But why could we not do the podcast right now?
We'd have to, because I'll tell you why. We have to stop this show, and then I have to get into my computer so that we can record the show so that I can upload it to our site afterwards. I know what you're saying. Can we just slip into the podcast right now? But see, then we want to keep the podcast and the shows different.
Yeah.
So when we upload them onto
I got
YouTube.
it. I got it.
You got it? You don't need any more?
No,
But it's a good idea. I know where you're going with that.
Occasionally, I need to be reminded that you know things about the show that I don't.
Yes, that is true now and then. Yes, exactly.
And that's why I trust you guys, because if it's plants, I might debate you.
I
but when
trust
it comes
you with
to
plants.
Technical stuff, forget it.
I would never debate you. I've
idea.
got to take a picture of the queen palms that John sent me. It's ridiculous how
You should plant it where that
tall-
ficus tree was just taken out, and so that way,
Right?
That way, in 10 or 12 years, you can make them take out a queen palm.
But I do have to transplant it. But they're closing in, John, probably 15 feet at least, and they were just two little twins palms in that little pot that you gave me about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago.
They're in the same pot.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be
I know.
funny?
I'm going to transplant.
Wouldn't that be funny if
You're
you
going to
planted
separate them though?
No, should I or should I? I mean, they're
It's
doing.
up to you. You can keep them together.
They're doing
but
well now in that small pot together.
Usually, you don't see queen palms in multi-trunk.
No, you don't. The problem is, I think I only have one other big pot. I could buy another one.
I think
could
it would
separate them.
I think it would be really funny for you to just go and plant it where they took out that ficus tree, so that way in 15 years you can call them back up and be like, I don't know who did it, but somebody put this queen palms
and the
here,
problem
and they need to be pulled out because they're going to start tearing up the side of this building.
The problem with that is that dirt, and I call it dirt, it's not soil, is so hard that the reason that the ficus grew the way it did, because those roots are so strong and tenacious, grew right through the plastic pot into the ground. I would have to dig a pretty good hole, and I'm not into that.
You have a ficus. You could put it back in that hole.
I do have a small ficus by the front door, which
No,
belongs...
I was thinking of the one that I gave you. You still have that, don't you?
Well, it's huge. Yeah.
Are you making sure that that's not rooting into the ground?
It's in my patio, so it can only grow into the tiles.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not doing that again.
You know what I've seen happen before, though, is some people that put those pots in a corner of their patio, right?
Right.
But so the edge of the patio goes into soil. So the pot's sitting on concrete.
I see. Right.
The pot is sitting on concrete, so they never think. But if you look out the back of the pot, a root has grown and then found the dirt.
Yeah.
And then it's grown in. I've seen that happen before, too.
Hey, speaking of roots, didn't you talk about an experiment they did, John, with fertilizer or something where they put food or fertilizer underground and then they would plant something a short distance away?
Yeah.
And then the roots would find their way to that water source underground?
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you were.
Yeah, I've seen that.
We talked about that.
And it's true. I mean, the roots will find what they need in terms of either nutrients or water
and grow toward that.
Yeah, and that's why sometimes, irrigation valve boxes underground,
right?
There's a lot of water in them. Sometimes when they turn off, water leaks, or sometimes there's just a slow drip. And roots will go into that void, into that box, and they'll fill up the box. They'll attach themselves to the valve. They'll find the water, and that's why it's not. Roots don't go usually and attack a pipe. They don't go and attach themselves to a pipe, crush it, and then try to get the water out. Usually that pipe has a little crack in it or leak, which is leaking water, and that's where the roots
and that's what they're going
go
for.
towards. Yeah, exactly. So if all the pipes are intact, you should be fine. Your roots aren't what caused the problem. It's when the pipes get old and they start failing. That's when roots become problematic. And for the most part, there are roots that are more aggressive than others, but any root can cause that problem. Right. People say, oh, well, don't plant this, don't plant that. But at the same time, if your sewer drain has a crack in it, any plant is going to cause a problem because they're going to end up going into that drain and they're going to end up filling it up with root matter kind of a thing and clogging the pipe.
Yeah, it's bad. John, how's your septic tank? I know you get that question asked every day. I know it's an old hat by now.
It's not full.
Now, see, I don't think I've ever. Yes, one time when I lived in Alpine, East San Diego, we had a septic tank.
Yeah.
But I never had to deal with it. I didn't live there long enough to even worry about it. How long is that supposed to last before you have to start getting in there and pumping stuff out and putting additives in there, John? Is that much of an upkeep?
I think septic tanks, they're kind of meant to last,
if they're working properly, they never need to be pumped
serviced.
Really?
Yeah. Because you have that bacteria and that life breaking everything down, eating it. And then the water, though, is distributed. So, it's not like this tank just filling up with water. The water actually gets distributed and then get leached out. The only thing that sits in the pit is any kind of the solids, but that's where, like I'm saying, if the life of the septic tank is working properly, it'll just keep eating away and allow you to keep dumping into it.
So from septic tanks, we got a question, John, that you're going to read from Sue
Rick
Miller?
sent me a picture of his orange brandy wine, but I have a new email system.
Bring this up. All you have to do is click the attachment.
And I can't open it because of it. I think there's a limit on the size of the image that you can send, where I didn't have that limit on my old email.
Oh, so you're airing your laundry in front of all the people who are listening to your complaints, John?
I can't. No, I can't.
I like the way John prefaced that. Well, at one time,
so
I was
may be able to do that, but
this new email system. So Sue Miller has a question.
What's the question?
Can we prune or shape the red Mexican bird of paradise tree/bush without losing next year's flowers? Allied Gardens is where she is writing from. Sue Miller.
Beautiful Cecil Pineas.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that plant. It's amazing.
They bloom on new wood,
Yep.
if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So pruning it should not affect next year's flowers at all.
Yeah.
Is that right?
I do not see it being a problem.
Because I know a lot of times the plants, it's kind of tender. They can freeze, right?
Yes.
And a lot of times the plants will freeze back in colder parts of the county. And they bloom fine as soon as the weather warms up.
Right. No. I don't think you need to really worry too much about not getting flowers next year because you did a hard prune this year, unless you did it at the wrong time of year. This is the time of year that they're blooming. Right. Yeah.
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 You probably want to prune them in the spring, right? Going into summer growth. So just before they start leafing out.
Yeah.
In the summer.
Time of year pruning could affect your bloom, but not pruning them too much.
Right.
So, as far as pruning now, not going to be a problem for next year's flowers at all. And they respond real well to pruning. And different varieties get bigger and and different shapes of the plant. So sometimes you do have to prune to shape because sometimes they can outgrow the space that you planted them.
Right.
A lot of people will see them and they're more of a compact grower. But then if you allow it to, it can get into almost like a big crepe myrtle bush. I've seen them get large. And so, you do sometimes have to prune to shape just because they can overgrow an area. It's a great plant. Good question. Yeah.
Very good question. John?
Kathy mentions that septic tanks should be cleaned out 3 to 4 years because the solids build up. My last house, 30 years without ever having to be cleaned out.
Never, ever.
Right. Now, we did have it pumped for several reasons during that time, but I would say that maybe 3 times they went through and pumped, and all 3 times they said, there's hardly anything there. So if the system is working really well and decomposing all those solids,
they should be then very low
you have
maintenance.
to kind of watch what you put in there, too. If you're putting in bleaches and things that are going to kill.
Reset.
If you use your dishwasher a lot, soaps are going to kill the bacteria that work.
Yeah, the good bacteria.
So, you don't, if you pour in, if you have problems with your pipes clogging up and you put in Drano or
oh my gosh,
something
things
like
I've
that.
never had to think about with a septic tank.
Well, it's kind of like a soil in the sense of if you use triple 15
you're
fertilizers,
going to take away the things the soil needs.
You're going to start killing the good stuff in the soil, and then it hits the reset button.
Yeah.
So
Well, you know what? It's 55 minutes after the hour. Close enough now. We can probably close out this show and get ready for our podcast, which will be starting in a few minutes here. So, again, thank you for tuning into Facebook Live, 2 hours. Now, next week, we're going to have an in-studio guest, Tiger, during the Facebook Live show. Yeah. And talking about what? What's the tease for next week?
Oh, you put me on the spot.
Right there, live on the spot.
Well,
make up something.
It's the Giving Tree. Oh, man. Something Tree. It's an organization here in San Diego that you
is that Patty Berg?
Yes, Patty Berg and the Giving Tree or something like that. And they go and, if you want to honor someone, a memorial or a gift, they'll go and plant a tree for these people these are in their homes.
In that person's name, obviously.
Yeah, and, these are nice trees that they talk about. So it's a program and it's a gift that you can give, but it's garden oriented. It's really neat, and they do a good job about it. And they make sure that they're going to plant the tree the right way, and it's going to be a good tree for the area. And so it's more geared towards people being successful in planting trees.
And we chose that over naming a store after somebody. Right?
Yes.
Okay. We're name a tree after somebody.
Yeah.
And by the way, it is the Giving Tree Company is the name of Patty Berg's company.
Yeah. Very good. Hey, thank you so much. Closing in on 10 o'clock here on the West Coast, 1 o'clock East Coast. Podcast immediately following this show. We're going to get set up. Thank you so much for John Bagnasco, Tiger Palafox. I'm Bryan Main. We do appreciate your support. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're trying to get to 1,000 people as soon as possible. Garden America Radio. And, of course, you can watch all the shows there, the podcast. And even on our Facebook page, of course, you can scroll down and do the same thing. So we're going to get ready for our podcast. Thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your day. If you have to go right now, don't have time to watch the podcast, but you can certainly hear it later on as we upload it. And, of course, watch it later on here on our Facebook page or our YouTube channel. So if you're going to stick around, we'll see you in a few minutes. Until then, for John, Tiger, I'm Bryan. Take care. This has been yet another Garden America radio show. So get growing America. Take care.